Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below. It is your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform. Please reach out to me directly. Email tmosso@thewatchbox.com for pricing details. Today we're discussing a uniquely 1980s take on the Omega Speedmaster Professional Moonwatch. This is the reference DD145.022, made from the early through mid-1980s. This watch is one of the few 1980s era watches I've ever encountered that has a full box and papers, including the original warranty card, filed in 1988 with the date of purchase and the name of the original retailer, a rare full box and papers documented 80s Speedmaster. And this is an unusual two-tone look. It is a very 80s take on the Moonwatch with a combination of steel and yellow gold. But structurally, it's a Moonwatch, which means 42 millimeters in diameter. It's 14 millimeters thick, 48 millimeters from lug tip to lug tip with a 20 millimeter spacing between the lugs. The bracelet is a 1171 with 633 end links, which is period and model correct. And you can see on my wrist, the watch has a lovely Miami Vice type of vibe to it. The watch is large. Even in the 80s, a 42 millimeter watch would have been considered huge for a man. And the timepiece has all of the stance and the aura and the gravitas of a standard NASA-flown Moonwatch. The timepiece has all that heritage, but it has more. It has a real flavor that's just redolent of the era in which it was made. Now, it does have a little bit of a cantilever to the bezel, so it'll get hung up under the tightest of dress shirts, but it'll fit underneath a jacket cuff. And because this is a vintage Speedmaster on a pivoted end link bracelet, it'll fit on a wrist as small as 14 centimeters in circumference. This is pre-solid end link. Again, my wrist is 16 centimeters circumference. The bracelet's in good shape. You can see that it features a combination of yellow gold and steel. Center links are hollow. End links are hollow. Everything is satinated. Removable links here are fixed by screws, which is something that would actually go away after a period on Speedmasters because this is an upscale reference. You have the screws. Most 80s and 90s and even early 2000s Speedmasters did not have screw-fixed removable links. So that is an upscale upgrade for the watch because it is a flagship example with gold included. Very crisp and snappy clasp. Also important, you can see just how deep the stamping remains and how sharp the details remain. We have many divots inside of the clasp, which allow you to use your strap tool to change the anchoring point. I'll show you the interior of the clasp. Always a point of interest on vintage watches. And again, it does retain superb snappy tolerances. The watch has been refinished, and you can see that, but it's been professionally and sparingly refinished. The character lines of the lyre-style lugs with their double bevel, still well intact, and the break between the satin and the polish remains well-defined all the way around, and I'll show you that to reduce any uncertainty and dispel any doubts you may have. We have a tachymeter bezel, which is anodized aluminum, and you can see we elected not to replace this. This is original to the watch, and while it does have marks of age, it still presents quite nicely. The dial is a service replacement piece that was serviced and added at Omega. You can see we have a Hesalite or Plexi that is an Omega factory replacement because it has the little Omega logo at center. That's so you know it's an Omega factory Hesalite thermoplastic. The dial's in outstanding shape. Of course it should be. It's a piece that was installed by Omega during service. And as you can see, it features full luminova. All the hands as well as the indices are luminova on this watch. The dial's upscale too, in a way that a standard Moonwatch isn't, because you can see it has blackened hands for better contrast against the yellow gold base, and then it has applique indices in a period when all of these would have been printed. In fact, to this day, Moonwatch dials are printed, so when you see applied indices, you know you're looking at a luxury model. It's still a Speedmaster Professional Moonwatch, which means it has all of the legend associated with it of those watches that flew on the space shuttle to the International Space Station on the wrists of countless astronauts. And this is an important watch because through history, nothing has been more iconic of spaceflight than the Speedmaster Professional. It's not the only watch that's ever been to space, but it's certainly the one collectors think of when they think of space watches. Plus, the Speedmaster was the first to go to the moon. It was a pre-moon model, but it was the first as a model family. Inside, you have the Moonwatch caliber, which is the 861 manual wind, 48-hour power reserve, 3 hertz beat rate, 17 joules. It has a combination of a cam and lateral clutch system, which has been very well tuned during service for crispness and sharp activation. Again, manual wind, 48-hour power reserve, and while it was 50 meters water resistant when it was new, I would not recommend that. Not today. I recommend you not swim with vintage watches. Also important, it is a Lemania-based movement. It's based on the Lemania 1873 Ebauche, which is a bit of a legend in the business. The Lemania 1873 is one of those Ebauche that constantly gets referenced alongside the daring-do exploits of some of the most famous astronauts and aviators. So it's very cool to have something with so much historical authenticity and story behind it. You can instantly get your friends hooked on watches, even if they're not into watches, when you start talking about where this watch and this movement have been. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.